I've said this so many times before, but psychiatry is the only medical profession that can diagnose without scientific evidence. But what if you could find out what's going on with your brain on a day-to-day basis in the privacy of your own home, where you feel the most comfortable in your life? What if there was a tool that you could use to create health and wellness and discover patterns and empower yourself to do something about your brain health and your your body's health as well? Well, today we're going to look at what you can do at home instead of waiting for your doctor to schedule an appointment, drive all the way over there. What if you could do this at home is what we're going to discuss with our brain whisperer, Dr. John Silva. He's going to share some of the home-based brain diagnostics that you can do in the privacy of your own home. So get your pencils, your paper, because we're going to take lots of notes and learn together. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you. Hi, my name is Lily McDermott, and I am a certified life coach, a certified holistic cancer coach, and the host of the Lillian McDermott Radio Show Classroom. If this is your first time in the classroom, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening and viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Well, as you know, every time Dr. John Silva comes in the classroom, I learn something new. And if you don't, to refresh your memory, I went through neurofeedback for almost a year or maybe over a year. And it's been life-changing for me. And I've heard of many that it's been life-changing for them as well. But today we're going to be talking about the improvements and what they've been able to do to diagnose whatever it is that's happening in your brain in a much detailed way. And Dr. John Silva is here to discuss it. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. John Silva is here to do just that. Welcome back to the classroom, Dr. Silva.
Wonderful to be back, Lily. Looking forward
It's
to this one.
Oh, yeah. I know that you're really excited about this because you have been talking for the last year about some of the things that you know are around the corner that are going to make our life so much easier to be proactive when it comes to our brain health. So let's go at it. Let's discuss some of these ways, especially with diagnostic. You heard me say that I've been very concerned about the fact that, people can diagnose depression, anxiety,
Mhm.
all these things without any tools, just on symptoms and feelings. So, what has been your perspective and your research on how these diagnoses are given to people without the proper tools to truly diagnose what's going on?
Yeah, good point. And that's outdated methodology. So you go to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, perhaps a neurological physician, neurologist, neuropsychologist. And when it comes to a lot of what I deem are brain-based disorders, and that's probably terminology that most people don't use, but should be, because anything from a cognitive, emotional, behavioral perspective are all functions of our brain. So, for instance, if we're having struggles with mood regulation, call it depression, and of course, they have so many different diagnoses of different types of depression, or take anxiety and panic, or like a lot of the clients that we see, combination of both of those things. You're going to sit down with a traditional allopathic doctor, again, whether it be one of those three physicians I described, They're going to maybe have an intake form, maybe have you do a couple of questionnaires at best. And just through conversation, they're going to make a diagnosis. And they go as far as making a specific type of diagnosis that has an associated code along with it for billing purposes. But you have this specific type of depression as opposed to these several other types of depression. At the end of the day, how did they come to that conclusion? Yes, anyone can listen to your complaints, your symptoms, but were they actually getting any measures of what's going on in your body, particularly your brain, because that's where our emotions come from? And the answer is plain and simple, no. Even a blood test could maybe start to uncover some of the underlying causes as to why a person's brain is not functioning properly enough to go into, say, a depressive state. But even that's not done typically until you go to maybe your primary care physician or you have another problem, health issue. So it's just such an outdated system. And I've always looked at it from this perspective. You think about it, of all the different specialties and all the doctors that fill those specialties. So you have neurologists, you have cardiologists, urologists. You go to any of these docs, and typically they're going to order some type of diagnostic or diagnostics that correlate with what they're trying to look at. That's breaking down in your body, giving you those symptoms. So perfect example is a cardiologist, okay? You go to a cardiologist because perhaps you're having some blood pressure issues or you're having heart issues, circulatory issues. They're going to order some type of test. It could be simply just putting a cuff on you in the practice and looking at your blood pressure. Hey, that's a diagnostic evaluation, as simple as it is, and we can do it from home. But at least they're looking at something. They're getting some physiological measure. They may go ahead and order an EKG, okay, to look at the actual electrical activity of your heart. They may order a CT scan. And of course, laboratory tests, taking blood samples will dive further into the overall physiology of your body, the biochemistry of your body. But you go to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, again, they're deriving this diagnosis just based on your conversation with them, maybe some questionnaires at best. And it's amazing to me because we have a plethora of standardized questionnaires that are available to all of us practitioners that we can then provide to our clients, whether they're done on paper or on a computer, that can help narrow down a diagnosis or what the person might be struggling with. And I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, no, I've never had any of these questionnaires before. So the diagnosis was simply made based on a consultation, a conversation. And nowadays, so much of it is done virtually. You don't even have to go to a physician. I'm not knocking that because that's how I work with a lot of my clients, but there's a disconnect there. We're not actually measuring the source of, again, I use depression as an example, but it could be numerous things. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And I want to say every time you use the word depression, a lot of people are using the word depression, anxiety. Um, and I'm wondering how many people are aware that sadness does happen in somebody's life. I guess, I wonder what the level, if somebody says I'm depressed, are they really just sad? Maybe there's something that they need to resolve. Maybe there's unspoken words between friends or a heartache that occurred from a breakup or someone died. People immediately go to depression without going to that sadness that needs to be dealt with as well as it progresses, but I can almost assure you there's no CPT code for sadness or
Good
fear.
point. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like just normal fear, just
So,
normal fear. It's like let's work on it. Let's work. That's why I love what I do. That's why I love what I do because so many people dismiss things with these diagnoses that may not belong with us. There's a
mhm.
lot of things that we can do, especially, we've talked about this before that, people, 30% of people that are diagnosed with dementia have it. That means 70% don't have it. What do they have? That perhaps maybe they have a drug interaction. Perhaps they're on statins. Perhaps they're on something else,
Mhm.
but yet they get diagnosed with it and it's done. And the only way we really know for sure is when they die and they examine the brain. There's got to be some improvement there, where
Yeah.
we
And
can.
there is, and there has been for quite some time. It's just, again, this is not your your typical approach, because the system is just set up that way, particularly as it relates to these kinds of things. Again, I like to look at things from just a general perspective. So think of in terms of any of these things coming from your brain. That's just the bottom line, the source of your emotions, just being a human being and expressing emotions, whether it be sadness that is short-lived because of an event, or even your own conjured thoughts. That's all part of the emotional experience of being a human
Exactly.
being. It's just when
Exactly.
these things carry out day after day, week after week, and throughout your entire lifetime, now you develop these personality traits, become what makes you you. You're not a depressed person. You're not born that way. You don't have the genetics for depression. You have some type of imbalances going on in your brain and how your
Yeah.
brain is functioning. And that is all
Yeah.
measurable and has been measurable for decades. But again,
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of docs aren't even considering it. So that's the big point here. And then again, what we're going to talk about here in a moment is how now we can even start to uncover this stuff from the convenience of home, which is
Yeah.
really powerful. Something I've been anticipating and waiting and part of the development process myself. And we're finally at that place. And it's amazing what we do have the capabilities within our own reach,
Well,
and very cost effective.
I'm looking forward to diving into this conversation. So,
Yeah.
when I originally started thinking about doing neurofeedback, I remember when you and I talked about it, and you said, "Just come on and I'll do the testing." So I drove all the way down to Port St. Lucie, and you put a cap on me that had gel, and you had me look at things or relax or listen to music. It was just and you did a QEEG.
Mhm.
Now, how are you still doing that, or is there now something that you can do where it's equivalent to a QEEG at home?
Yes. Yes, and yes. So yes, I still offer what I call a full 1020 QEEG is the official terminology. And just to back up for those that may have not tuned into any of these podcasts in the past, QEEG stands for quantitative electroencephalogram. A lot of words there. What does it all mean? It's using EEGs. These are just sensors that are placed on the scalp. And as you mentioned, the way we do it in a clinical practice like mine or anyone else's is we have a cap with some conductive gel. And these sensors do not emit anything into the brain. There's no electricity involved. These are just sensors that are measuring your brainwave activity through the scalp and through the skull. And this is how we measure brain function. Our brains function through what are called brain waves. And you may have heard of the concept of the different types of brain waves going on at any point in our life, whether we're asleep or whether we're awake. Our brain has these different brain waves that are all functioning in harmony, or should be functioning in harmony. When they're in a state of dysregulation, as I call it, that's where we can start to have problems in terms of how our brains function, which then lead to our cognitive, emotional, behavioral issues. So coming back to the clinic, yes, I still offer those. And I even have people that drive at great lengths throughout the state of Florida to come here. In fact, there's certain conditions that I'll recommend that we absolutely need to have a full QEEG because of the severity or the complexity of a person or a child's problem. I've even had people drive from out of states, Tennessee, Georgia, or even fly in. They'll make a mini vacation out of it. Because there's unfortunately not a lot of clinics or practices that do quantitative EEG, especially for people who live in suburban areas, rural areas. So I've had the ability to do what I call neurometric brain assessments, which is a battery of questionnaires. And again, we're going back to those standardized questionnaires. Usually when I give these to people to complete from home, they've never seen anything like it before. But yet that alone can really dive into how different regions of their brain may not be functioning properly that are leading to their emotional status or their cognitive issues that got them to pick up the phone to call me to see if we could help. But it's always nice to measure. Again, I'm a big advocate of measuring what's going on in terms of our brain's function, just like you would get with any other doctor. So we now have the capabilities of doing QEEG from the convenience of home using a very simple system. It is a wearable headband that has what's called dry electrode technology. So there's no paste involved. There's no gel. It's a simple, comfortable headband you put on. And depending on what we need to measure, what parts of the brain we need to measure, if we do use any paste or gel, it's just a single electrode. And again, I call them electrode. It sounds like electricity, but again, these are sensors. we place the sensor, we move it to different locations, and remotely, I can actually record how a person's brainwave activity is functioning in real time, record that, and then assess that data using computer science and using computer processing. And then we can actually map out. So what it gives us, as you might recall, and I know we've showcased this on previous podcasts, it actually gives us a visual map of a person's brain region by region. So we can look at, for instance, the frontal cortex, temporal lobes, the occipital lobes of the brain, and we can see and identify where there are dysregulated brainwave patterns that then can manifest in, again, things like depression or anxiety or ADD in kids or impulsivity in kids or adults. All these things that, again, derive from our brain function are measurable and have been measurable for many decades. This is not something new. The new part of it is the fact that we can actually do this from the home now, which is, again, long waited and anticipated, but the time has finally arrived, which is nice.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're doing this measurement and you're trying to get these results, do you still can a traumatic brain injury versus a childhood trauma, are those equally as noted? Does the system, is it able to capture that? And how does it do it? How does it
Yeah, great
capture it?
question. So, as I call it, the brain will leave clues as to what type
Okay.
of insult or injury or trauma that person has had. And it may not be recent, it could be even long ago. I've seen the residual effect of brain dysregulation. For instance, someone that had a significant concussion injury 10 years ago, their brain is still in this dysregulated state, and we can pick up on these clues or patterns in their brainwave activity in different regions of the brain and say, you know what, it's not always a for certain, but we can get a strong correlation that, hey, this is probably from that head injury you had 10 years ago. And this is still manifesting and giving you now issues with concentration or memory or sleep issues or even headaches. So that's the power in QEEG technology. And again, realize that this technology has been around for many decades. In fact, EEG has been around since I think it was first invented back in the early 1930s, which was just the ability to put sensors on the scalp and be able to look at the brainwave activity in real time, which is how we measure brain function. So it really gives us so much more insight than just having a conversation with somebody and coming up with a clinical diagnosis. It gives us insight as to where that is coming from. Again, it always comes back to the brain. So again, think in terms of three primary functions of our brain. Cognitive functions. So our brain, again, through its neural activity, is what derives our ability to think, our ability to have conversation, drive our car, all these cognitive functions that carry out throughout the day. Our ability to learn, to process our world, to remember things, store them into long-term memory, short-term memory, to remember things in general without forgetting things throughout the day. All those are cognitive functions, and they're all derived from our brain, plain and simple, okay? So if you're having any issues with any of the things that I just mentioned, you know what? You need to have your brain function looked at. Again, plain and simple. Yes, there are other ancillary tests we can look at, maybe some blood tests, but we need to look at how your brain is functioning. And unfortunately, that is just missed in most practices. So we look at cognitive, and we have, of course, our brain is what drives our emotions. Okay, our emotional well-being or not so well-being, okay, comes from our brain in this dysregulated state. So when our brain is dysregulated, where our brain waves aren't operating properly in certain regions of the brain, that can manifest in extreme sadness or depressive traits or depression and or anxiety or overwhelming stress and the inability to handle and process that stress. All these things are emotional states of the human experience. But again, we need to have things in balance. Okay, there's a time to be sad, as you mentioned. There's a time to be a bit stressed and anxious. It's how we grow. It's how we learn from maybe mistakes or environments or situations. But our body and through our nervous system and our brain should be able to recover back to what we call homeostasis. The problem with that is, take anxiety for instance. There's a person that's constantly in this aware, over-aroused state that any little thing, whether This is the amazing thing, whether conjured up in their mind or real in their life, will just keep driving this over arousal state, this anxiety. So these are the people that walk around all day long and just constantly anxious, overly stressed, they're losing sleep, and it can get to such an extreme that people have fear of losing even leaving their house. And I've seen people who haven't left their house in sometimes years because of the level of their anxiety. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, you measure their brain function, and it's like just clearly see, just like an X-ray would clearly show a fracture for a doctor, we can clearly see where that anxiety and panic is coming from. And the cool thing about QEEG technology and how we map everything out, I can sit there either in person at my clinic or through a virtual Zoom call, and I can show you your report, show you your brain map. And within 10 minutes, I can get you some basic understanding, enough to understand, hey, all these red colors in this part of the brain, for instance, are driving your anxiety and panic that you've been dealing with for years, that have left you incapacitated and inability to leave your home and losing sleep every night. That's how for certain we know QEEG is, and that's where it's been for decades. That right there, I watch people and their reaction. I bet people just start breaking down in tears because this is the first time ever dealing with these situations that they've seen something related to how their body or their brain is functioning.
Yeah.
To give us some insights. I mean, that alone is a game changer for people. But of course, what do we do about it now, which is the next part of this whole process?
Yeah.
But just having that insight that they've never had before, because they were just told, oh yeah, you've got anxiety, panic disorder. This is your diagnosis. This is
Diagnosis.
your
Yeah, that's right.
diagnostic code.
CPT
We'll
code,
submit that to
CPT
your
code.
insurance. We'll
Yeah.
follow up with you in 6 months. Here's your medication. Let's see if it works. If not, we'll adjust it. We'll add more to it. Meanwhile, never looking at their brain function. It's so sad. It really is, especially when it comes to people in these dire situations. And I've seen plenty of them over my years of doing this.
Yeah, I'm sure that you have. And I remember we did a class where you had someone that had been doing, they learned about it, your work through the show, and they
Mm-hmm.
scheduled time and they came on and talked about how the anxiety that they live
Yeah,
with is now
yeah,
gone. And it was a great class. So, but for those of you who are maybe this is their first time learning about Dr. John Silva, I have a playlist for him. And so if you go to YouTube, you'll see the playlist. It's all organized under his name or brain neurofeedback and brain health. And all his videos are there. And it's just so amazing. Like for me, when I first saw my QEEG and the red and the yellow, I'm like, yeah, this is not my brain. But at the same time, going, okay, what are you going to be able to do about it? And so looking at my second one and then my third QEEG and the difference that it made, to this point, it still has made a difference in my life. And I know I want to go back and see, after taking a little break, what my brain is doing now. I'm just curious.
yeah, sure.
So I'm probably going to come with a friend and while I'm there, I'll probably do a QEEG for myself. But at the same time, people suffer in silence. People suffer in silence. They think that this is as good as it's going to get. They're given a pill for their diagnosis, and that pill creates other problems, even suicidal tendencies. And
Oh
some of
yeah,
these, so I'm just saying that it's my opinion, not my research with the research that I've done and hearing about all these mass shootings. Many of them were on medication. I don't know what kind of medication they were, psychotropic medications, but I wonder if they have suicidal ideologies, would they be willing to do some, mass shooting before they kill themselves? So there's just we don't know what we don't know. I'm not saying that my what I feel and what I've researched is true. I'm just saying that that is what I've concluded, that there's just so much that we don't know about how these drugs affect the brain and what causes them to act a certain way. So we're really trading one set of problems for the unknown. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
with this, I know that this is amazing. Not just from me, but I've seen it with my husband and other people that led me to neurofeedback. So with that in mind, what are some of the signs and symptoms? And In some cases, I've been dealing with people that have low
Mhm.
oxygen, and how could neurofeedback help someone that might have low oxygen going to their brain because of anxiety or maybe their lungs or whatever's going on in their body? How do
Yeah.
you address all of that?
Yeah, great question. In fact, you bring up that this is the exciting thing. We've now, the new technology that I just adapted several months ago, and this is brand new to the market. Again, all done from home, which is great. It actually, in addition to the EEG sensors to measure the brain wave activity, we are able to actually use one of the sensors, again, non-invasively, to measure blood flow, particularly in the frontal cortex, which is the most important part of our brain as far as executive processing, cognitive function. A lot of our mood resides in the frontal cortex, but we actually have technology that up until several years ago, you had to go to either a research setting or some type of clinical setting that would do this type of stuff or would have access or the equipment to do this. We now have technology that has scaled it down, very cost effective, where we can actually look at blood flow in the frontal cortex, which is an important part of, again, brain physiology or function. And it is something that we can now measure. And we actually have specific, let's call them training sessions to increase that blood flow. And whenever you can increase blood flow to the regions of your brain's going to operate better. Okay. So, and you bring up another point too, is coming back to the traditional approach. It's a chemical approach. They're going to prescribe you a medication, which is just synthetic compounds mixed together. They put a label on it, and this is for depression. This is for anxiety. This is for your sleeplessness. This is for your cognitive issues. And what they're trying to do is address the imbalances in the biochemistry of your brain and body. But the reality is what we're doing through QEEG, EEG, neurofeedback, which is the therapeutic part of this whole process, is we're helping the brain from an electrical standpoint or electrophysiological standpoint. There's more power in working with your brain and recuperating brain function when you look at it from that perspective and you work on it from that perspective. Okay, so consider this, just a little dive into the anatomy or the structure of all of our brains. Our brains are comprised of billions of nerve cells called neurons, and they make these electrical chemical connections. And they do this at lightning fast speeds, and they make these intricate, complex networks. It's much like a supercomputer. And when you need to conjure up a thought, or you need to figure out a math equation if you're a student, or you need to just drive your car from point A to point B, all these neurons are all activated in these neural patterns. But what happens is because of head trauma, because of emotional trauma, traumatic events in our life, just watching the news these days, these are little micro traumas, as I call them, they start to affect how these neurons fire and wire together, the electrical nature of our brain. And that's the whole essence of EEG, neurofeedback, QEEG. So we're getting to the root cause. So what I tell people is, yes, it's important to still look at the biochemistry nature of our brain, the biochemical nature, but the biochemistry follows the electrophysiology. When you can start correcting the electrical imbalances, call them short circuits, the biochemistry will almost naturally solve itself. We usually don't need the dependency on the chemicals. In any chemicals that I would use, it would be homeopathic remedies or natural supplements, or making sure the body and the brain are receiving good nutrition, which is the essence of any biochemistry in our body to begin with. But this is from an electrophysiological standpoint. And when you're looking at the brain in terms of electricity rather than just chemically, which is the whole premise of our entire allopathic healthcare system, there's so much power to that. And that's how I see people, again, after decades sometimes of taking medications, high doses of medications, to never really have their problem be significantly improved or even eliminated. They can do neurofeedback for the course of several weeks, a couple of months, and all of a sudden they're having gains that they've never seen or experienced before. In fact, for some people, it's almost odd because it's like they're living an entirely new life, a better life, and they're like questioning it. They start calling it placebo. It's amazing the conversations I have with people, but that just shows you the power of looking at your brain from an electrical standpoint, working with it from an electrical standpoint, hence the EEG and the neurofeedback, and the power that has. Again, I literally have seen people with significant panic disorder, anxiety disorder, sleeplessness within a matter of just weeks, almost completely resolve that, and you give it enough time, 4 to 6 months of continued therapies from home,
Mm-hmm.
and it completely goes away. It's like they never had that diagnosis. They never had that problem. It was just a blip in their life. And unfortunately, for some people, those blips can be years or even decades. And it's so sad to know that people have suffered that long when there are potential solutions available to them.
It is sad. It really is sad. And it's as simple as you and I have discussed before, as simple as rewiring something that needs to be rewired in your electric, like your light bulb.
Yeah.
If your light switch doesn't come on, you don't feel shame that the light bulb didn't come on. You check the light bulb, you check, if that's not working, or if that's working, then you check the wires and the wall. Maybe something came apart, and then eventually might need to hire an electrician to come take a look at it. No one's shamed by it. It's a rewiring that needs to happen, and then all of a sudden the light bulb works, and
Yeah.
nobody's shamed. So we've done rewiring of the brain 1.0, rewiring of the brain 2.0. And for today, if any of you want a copy of the Rewiring the Brain 2.0, which is an excellent workshop that Dr. John Silva did. We did a webinar. It was amazing. We need to do another one. We keep talking about doing another one. We need to do another one.
Yeah.
But Rewiring the Brain 2.0, we're offering it for free. So if you text me, I'll give you the link, and then you can watch it. Or you can email me, and I'll add the link on there so that you can watch it. And also, because you are a follower of the classroom, Dr. John Silva has offered a 45-minute consult, a free consult that you can discuss it with him and see if this is right for you. No strings attached, and maybe schedule a QEEG or whatever it is so that you can see the condition of your brain. I love how Dr. Silva, the true intention is to help, and it's affordable compared to having to go to a clinic, having to get the medications, or having to, because people will spend money on medications, but if they can just do it naturally, how much more, will it save us in the long run when you don't have to be on
Oh,
medication,
yeah.
you
That's
know?
huge savings from a
So
monetary standpoint.
that's right. There's so many
Yes.
different reasons, time, treasure, and of course the emotional well-being. I've seen how some of these drugs have stolen the souls of the people that are taking it. Now, I'm not judging. If you're taking it, then you're taking it. But I just want you to understand that there are other options out there. So I just wanted to share how Dr. Silva is making a difference in the classroom, and how you benefit by just mentioning my name. You get the free you get the webinar so that you can watch it. You get to have 45-minute consult with Dr. John Silva, and I promise you that will go like that, and you will learn so much. So today, we're talking about understanding at home brain diagnostic for everybody, whether it's a child or an adult. So I want you
Mhm.
to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, and when you need a friend.com, please subscribe to my website, like me and follow on all social media. Share this video with your friends. This is a way that you can help the classroom grow, because there should be no shame when we need assistance in mental health. And we should just be so excited to get to that other side where we can see the beautiful rainbow. And so I just want to encourage you to do whatever you can to be a part of that. I want to encourage you, when you need a friend.com. And by the way, when you subscribe, it's a two-step process. So when you subscribe, you will get an email. So you need to make sure you opt in. That way you can continue getting the blogs and the audios from the classroom. It gets sent to that website to your email if that's what you want. But you need to opt in. So the second step is to opt in. And when you do, you get the weekly blog, and you will have all of Dr. Silva's information. Just click on his name, it'll take you to his website, and you can start your journey. Just mention my name so that way he knows that he's going to give you a 45-minute consult instead of what he typically does, which is less, and which is still good, but it's still, I'm just excited that he's offering more to us. So take advantage of the name Lily McDermott. Okay, so when you go to whenyouneedafriend.com, there is a Shop Now bag, and in that Shop Now bag, these are all Lily approved products from head to toe. So check those out. Well, whatever the case might be, just check them all out. And if you have any questions on any of them, please reach out to me. And finally, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure. Please consider helping us out. Give up your latte once a week and donate that to the classroom, or just once a month, donate that to the classroom. Whatever it is, there's a link below that you can click on in the description that will take you to the donors page. And there's also links below that will take you to Dr. Silva's website. So you can go to Dr. Silva, info at drsilva.johnsilva.com. So that's
Yeah.
info at drjohnsilva.com. And so, or you could just reach out to me and I can connect you and I can send you his link to do a 45-minute consult. There's just so much we don't know. And it's been so joyful working with you about this because I know that there's been a negative stigma to when it comes to mental health. And, no different than taking a vacation, taking a little leisurely break, or taking some personal time for health wise. There should be no shame involved in this. So, Dr. Silva, when it comes to one of the reasons that you want to do this is this is new technology diagnostics that you can do at home. So do you want to go deeper into that? Is there anything that you would like to share about these diagnostic tools and how it's easier in the home for everybody?
Yeah. So where we're at now, as I mentioned, again, I still offer the full QEEG, and there may be certain situations where I'm going to highly recommend you come to my clinic, or we can refer to a clinic that uses a similar methodology if you can't get to my clinic. But, for probably a good 80 to 90% of the people I work with, after going through a 45-minute consultation, we will deem, all right, this is suitable for at home. The technology that I use, if you can operate an iPad or an iPhone in this day and age, you can easily do this assessment from home. Now, of course, I'm working with you through a Zoom call, guiding you through the process, but even the system that I use is even self-guided. You don't even have to be involved with me. And it basically guides you through step by step on how to capture the measurements of your brainwave activity. That is all then sent to the cloud. I'm able to access it from my end of what we call the portal. And I have an individual account for all my clients that I'm actively working with. And I go ahead and process that data using computer machine learning. And it gets all mapped out in what we call these brain maps that show us colors representing where our brainwave activity is outside of the normal range, either too high or too low, and then how that correlates with a person's either cognitive, emotional, behavioral problems. So all that process, usually we can have done within a couple of days. And when we do meet for a follow-up after doing the QEEG analysis, I'm able to provide you a report in PDF format and show you exactly what's going on. And again, I make it very easy to understand. Even the system that I use even has little tutorials built into it. And part of what I'm really doing, especially with this advancement in this ability to do QEEG from home, is I really want to get people passionate about their brain. Because think about this. Of any part of your body, any system within your body, in my opinion, and this is just based on science and how our body operates, the brain is where it's all at. The brain controls and coordinates every single aspect of our life. All right? Our cardiovascular system doesn't function in of itself. It functions as a result of the neurological system, the brain telling the heart how to pump. It's detecting minute variances in blood chemistry, and the brain and through the nervous system is it making adjustments for that. The brain is telling your food how to digest. from your last meal. Your brain is coordinating your muscles to walk from point A to point B. Everything is coming from your brain. So no matter what condition you might have, but especially if it's something that directly correlated to your brain, as we mentioned, things like anxiety, depression, attention deficits, we should be looking at the brain no matter what. And especially as we're aging, because I know a big concern for so many people now is they're getting into their 40s, 50s, and especially seeing family members and friends starting to suffer with forgetfulness, memory issues, and maybe been diagnosed with some type of cognitive impairment or even dementia. It becomes a real concern. You know, no better time to start looking at it. Hey, how's my brain functioning? And am I susceptible to that based on where I'm at now in my 30s or 40s? In fact, just throw the statistic, and I know we've talked about this before. By the time someone is diagnosed with some type of dementia, and whatever degree of that dementia is, it's been about estimated 15 to 20 years of their brain not functioning properly. Their brain waves are in this dysregulated state. It wasn't really giving them any symptoms, or if it was, there were very subtle symptoms that they just brushed off. Yeah, I'm forgetful a lot when it comes to my phone, leaving my phone behind, or forgetting that where you live, and I've been here 10 times and I still need your address and put it into my GPS, or just I'm giving you all these real world scenarios that people just brush off as age, or because everyone else around me is going through the same thing. It's just part of the human experience. It's not. We should have our cognitive functions well intact, well beyond our 70s, 80s, even into our 90s and even beyond that. And how I know this is, in perhaps the listening audience may know a person or two, if you're lucky enough to know a person or two, that have lived into their 90s or beyond 100 and still have great emotional well-being, behavioral well-being. Yeah, other parts of the system might be breaking down or slowing down, but they still have this working pretty well for their age.
Yeah.
So it's the age is an excuse, okay? It's not the age. And if you really want to be certain, then there's no better way than to measure. And this is a great way to be able to do that from home. So part of this journey is as we get people through the assessment process, doing the QEEG brain mapping. And by the way, I didn't even bring this point up. What part of that QEEG brain mapping not only gives you the insight when you're suffering or your child suffering with something, which is, again, tremendous insight, but it then gives me the ability to know how to work with your brain individually, because everyone has their unique brainwave patterns. So we're going to take what we see from that QEEG and develop a specific neurofeedback training protocol. So think about it as training for your brain, just like a training for your physical body. And that's going to be custom tailored to you or your child. And then when you do your neurofeedback sessions from home using the same technology, and it's all iPad driven with a wearable headband, you're actually going to be watching videos, or your child will be watching videos, and your brain will be given feedback through a video image that fades in and out. This is the neurofeedback process, the actual therapy or the actual training process. And what's so neat about this is I can actually watch a person's session in real time from my computer, no matter where I might be at, no matter where they may be at in this whole world, because I do work with people even outside of the United States. And it's so neat. I can watch their brainwave activity on a graph in real time as if they're sitting right next to me. And I like, as we get people underway and just getting familiar with the sessions and starting to reap the benefits from these sessions, I like to, in a lot of the regular consultations I have with my clients, I like to dive into a little bit of the science, show them what their brains are doing in real time. It's just fascinating stuff when you can actually see your brainwave activity with these sensors on your scalp, and you can see what your brain is doing in real time. Kids really get a kick out of this. This is just science.
Well, not just kids, because I got a kick out of it. The first brainwave, I remember the first session I did, you showed me what it looked like versus the
Yes.
third or fourth. And it was like comparing a bowl of spaghetti. It was like they were all over the place, to a pattern, a rhythm,
Yeah.
to the way, and it was just, wow, that was quick. You know, how quickly do people feel the improve? Because for me, I don't have there are people that have anxiety that can't leave home. If I am anxious about something, I lean into it and I do it anyway. Like for example, doing an event or having people come over. I
Mhm.
work through it and I just don't allow the fears to get the best of me. I just do what I plan on doing and it's all good. But still, it might take me a little bit longer. But
Mhm.
I don't have that kind of like tell like I couldn't get out of the house today and I got out of the house. It wasn't like that for me. For me, it was a level of calmness that I had not experienced during stressful times. And so, like planning an event, I remember it was a month later, and I hadn't, if you would have asked me, have you noticed any difference? I would have probably said, oh, I don't know. I know I feel fine. I mean, I feel fine. But when I did that event a month later, and I felt so calm. I slept the night before, and it was
Mhm.
like, it was, and I said, oh, now I'm noticing the difference because,
Yeah.
I don't have those, I don't think I've ever had a panic attack because I know how to calm myself down. I don't know if that makes sense, but even though I don't have that kind of level, within me, that's happening without me knowing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that
yeah.
when I experienced slept the whole night the night before the event of over 100 people and was able to be calm the day of and just take it, roll with it, just roll with it. It was just so amazing. And I said, you know what, everybody needs to do this. Everyone deserves to do this, really, truly. But I wanted to talk about tracking the results. So when you saw what I was doing, this was my first EEG or my first result of my first neurofeedback versus, 4 days later or 2 weeks later and how it changed. Um, can people also do you always show this to people so that they
Oh,
can
yes.
monitor
Especially with
themselves?
the newer systems that I'm using now, there are metrics that are available within the system that are easy to understand for virtually anybody. But I will definitely hone in on this. And this is where this gets exciting because you'll be able to see your brain getting stronger, developing based on real world metrics. So once you've done enough neurofeedback sessions, and this is just like training at the gym. You can't expect to do it a couple times and have your brain make these big changes. It takes consistency, takes time. Typically, neurofeedback training sessions from home, like I said, are watching a video that you get to choose, whether it's a movie or something on YouTube. And I usually have people do a minimum of 3 of these a week. But over the course of about 20 to 30 sessions, people are starting to comment on the differences that they're feeling. They may be small, subtle changes, but they're noticing. And one of the most common initial effects is that calming, as you stated. That's how I hear that from just about everybody. They just feel this general calmness about themselves. Even those that may not be entering this because of anxiety, the need to calm down, they just generally feel better. They're able to handle things better with more ease. And then of course then we start to see improvements in cognitive function. But the systems that I use report on metrics and improvements in an easy to understand format. And it's quite exciting when you can actually see your brain developing and getting stronger. It's such an important part of this process to know that, hey, my efforts in sitting down to do these sessions, even though they're easy enough to do, again, you're watching the videos, how much easier could it be to do a therapeutic intervention or training, but to watch videos? And you'll be able to see the changes over time. We can actually measure every step of the way. And that's what I love about this because this is bringing real world science into the convenience of doing it at home and seeing measurements every step of the journey. You don't see that when you take a medication. Come on.
No,
You don't
no,
even have
and
any evidence of what your brain was doing to begin with as a baseline. We go well beyond just the baseline to show you concrete evidence of what's going on with your brain, but then we follow it every step of the way through to show you how your brain is improving and getting stronger. And of course, during this journey, you're feeling the difference. Or if it's your child that's
yeah.
doing this, you're seeing the difference in your child's behavior, their ability to keep up in school or be able to do their homework without extreme frustration or taking a long time to do it. All these things that come from just having a better functioning brain.
I kind of have this image of you like Oz behind the curtain, doing all these things. But the reality is that it is very simple. It is simple. And what I don't have a lot of time, and it's like even like I don't know if I told you about the Vision body suit. For 20 minutes, I could put this on and it's stimulating my muscles and I'm working out and I'm burning like 900 calories in less than 20 minutes. And I'm, it is just wonderful. So I don't even drive to the gym because driving to the gym is a waste of time. I can just do this from my home. I can do squats, I can do weights or whatever it is. And when I think of something like that, which by the way, if anybody's interested in the Vision Body, you can go to my Shop Now page and you can get $50 off whatever price the lowest price is. And so what I'm trying to say is if I would have had to have gone to a doctor to do this 3 times a week, and I was trying to do it every day because I wanted to be your teacher's pet. So if I had to do this 3 times a week, get in my car, drive to the doctor, be there for an hour or 45 minutes, then come back home, make dinner, do whatever it is, I probably wouldn't have been as consistent as doing it in the home. So have you found that the time, because a lot of people think, oh, this is going to cost too much money, I'm not even going to look into it. When you think about the overall, how much time it takes, and the cost for gasoline, the cost for getting dressed and going out there and doing all this
Mhm.
stuff, what would you say is comparable? Because I know that you have special packages for people to meet their needs. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So overall cost, and I always come back to this, no matter whether we're dealing with the brain or any other condition, you've just got to be realistic with yourself and whatever you're suffering with, and as to how important your health, particularly your brain health, is to you, and what value do you hold on that? Do you value that more than, you know what, I need to go out and buy another big screen television, a bigger one than the one I have now, and it's going to cost me several $1,000s? What's more valuable? Getting over your anxiety, depression, or your child's struggles in school, or that next television, or that next iPhone, the next greatest, latest iPhone? So it always comes down to just what value you put on your personal health. And that's just a conversation you have to have with yourself. And I'm just upfront with people. If you don't value your health, that no matter what the cost of this might be, it's not going to provide you the benefit. You're probably not going to do it. But on the other side of that, this is very cost effective. And that's the wonderful thing about it, is not, as you mentioned, just the convenience of doing this from home without having to bring yourself to a clinic several times a week, which is what I was doing up until about 6, 7 years ago. But when you actually, I guess, cost factor it out. So just give you an idea, when you do a neurofeedback session in a clinical setting these days, and has been probably the average cost over the last 10 years, at least what I've tracked, it can range anywhere between, say, 80 to 125. I've heard as much as $150 in areas like Colorado, out west in California. I've heard people tell me it costs $150 per neurofeedback session. And we typically have to do upwards of 40 of these, if not more, depending on the severity of a person's condition. When you're doing this at home with this advanced technology, it's a fraction of that cost, even more than half of that cost in most cases. So yeah, it's worked out to be, with this advancements in technology, easier to access, easier to do because of the convenience, and more cost effective. Yeah.
Well,
And the
I
wonderful thing
agree.
about it too is now you have tools in place that you can continue to use either for other members of your family or household. Because you take any given household, everyone's typically struggling with some type of brain-based problem. Okay.
Yeah.
And you may not realize it, but I mean, sleeplessness, or it struggles with sleep. That is stemming from your brain not functioning properly. Okay. Again, forgetfulness, all these things. So what's nice is about having a home-based neurofeedback in place in the household that you own, you keep. Now we can look at this from a whole family perspective, a whole household perspective. How can we all improve our lives through getting our brains better? And I work with entire families. It's so exciting. You work with the
Yeah.
kids that are struggling with their ADHD diagnosis, mom and dad with their day-to-day stress, their sleeplessness. Maybe they're getting up there in age and they're starting to have more forgetful moments and cognitive issues. So and what's great about it is it becomes almost like a family thing.
Hmm.
So again, there's not many families, but those families that do train together, whether it be involved in a specific sport or going to the gym together. I think that's a wonderful thing. All right. Rather than just doing it on yourself, being isolated, especially for kids. When they see the parents also doing this, although kids love watching videos anyway, so it's easy for them to do. But when they see the parents doing it, now they feel more inclined to do it and say, you know what? Again, kids take this to heart. They're given a diagnosis of ADHD or something, and they feel like they have this chip on their shoulder, and everyone looks at them like, oh, well, and especially their family members, why am I having to do this? Why am I struggling? Why do I have ADHD? Or I have to take this Ritalin? And when you can get other family members and mom and dad involved and make it an experience that, hey, we're going to get our bodies and our brains stronger and healthier, now it becomes this non-clinical thing. It becomes a fun thing for the whole family to do. And that's what's really cool about where we're at and what I've been doing. And I've worked with families, the whole family's involved with it. And it's just awesome to watch the family flourish because they have better communications with each other. There's not these emotional struggles amongst each other. Everyone's working with a better functioning brain, and it just improves your personal life as well as your interactions with others.
Yeah, and I will say personally that this checked all the boxes for me when it came to just entrainment or the treatments that I was getting. It saved me time, saved me money, saved me, and it's something that I could choose what I wanted to watch, so I could also do a little bit of work while I was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, it saves you time, but ultimately what it does is that it helps you feel empowered that you can choose something naturally first. And then if you feel that you want more, then check for something more. But it checked all the boxes for me because time is so important. And more importantly, as I watch my mom, she has full dementia. I wish I would have had this tool
Yeah.
before I could help, so I could help her. But it's just one of those things where I I want to give myself this gift. I want to rewire my brain. And I'm so grateful that you have said yes to doing these classes together. And hopefully others will say yes to doing this with you. So thank you so much, Dr. Silva, for everything that you do. And I really do appreciate it.
Oh, of course, you're welcome. And it's always a joy doing these classes.
Yes. And for those of you, remember the two gifts that you get. So if you want a copy of the Rewiring Your Brain 2.0, go ahead and email me, text me. You have the information right below, right behind me. And then the other one is the 45-minute consult. If you are on the fence and you're thinking that this could be something for you, all you have to do is reach out to me or reach out and I can get you the link for 45 minutes with Dr. John Silva. So thank you, Dr. Silva, for everything that you do. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Yes, most definitely.
And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lily McDermott and Dr. John Silva wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.